Well, go ahead.
But
Hello, friends and brothers. Welcome to Masonic Improvement. I am Dennis Yates, and my fabulous co-host, Justin Jones, with all of our inner circle members here. I'm so glad that you're able to come on the show today. This is our very first episode of our very first really educational deep dive, and I am extremely excited. This is we always talk the talk and people wonder if we walk the walk. So now it's our opportunity to walk the walk. And as a quick disclaimer out there, um, what we say on this show is our opinions alone. And we do it with a true uh, heart of a Freemason. We do it as the gentlemen of the day, free thinking men, um, with our own thoughts and our own vision that comes up based on our own experiences in life. And there is nothing you can say that is wrong, and there is nothing I won't stand behind you on 100% as being authentic to you. And if anyone talks trash, then screw them. That's all I
haters
got to
gonna
say
hate.
about that.
Haters
Haters
gonna
gonna
hate.
hate. But what I was gonna say real quick, just before Justin jumps on, um, is that I'm really excited to have Chris Williams, one of my dearest mentors, on the show. He has helped me along in my Masonic and esoteric journey, and I love you, Chris. Thank you for coming on with us. He is our honorary inner circle member tonight that will be working through some of this stuff with us.
Thanks, Brother Dennis. Of course, there's a couple of those rabbit holes that I put some dirt in, hoping you wouldn't come back out of, but you did. So that's for another day.
I don't. I think that there's probably a few people that share that sentiment with you,
Yeah,
but
yeah, sure.
All right. Well, so like was pointed
yeah,
out,
follow that, Justin.
I was just thinking of the old Bugs Bunny cartoons where he like Bud throws the dynamite down the hole, but he keeps coming back. You just can't hold down the rabbit.
That's right.
Anyway, so this evening, for those of you that are not in the know, we are starting with our deep dive on Kybalion, and we're going to hit chapter 1 this evening. And so, I don't really. Here's my thoughts on how I like to approach these conversations. We need to be sure that we're giving people plenty of opportunity to share their thoughts, and so, but we also need to be sure that, like Dennis said, uh, especially when you start going down the rabbit holes like Dennis is talking about, it may seem harder and harder to connect the dots, and things may seem more abstract to you unless you've gone down those same rabbit holes. So just be thoughtful of one another, be respectful of each other. And Brad, this is just being recorded. This is not live. That way, if we want to edit or something later, we can do that. This is just a perk to be an inner circle. We'll put it that way. So, Dennis, do you want to just kind of? I'm not. This is my first book club deep dive. So, if you would like to just kind of facilitate starting off, and then we'll converse how we need to.
Well, sure. This is actually the second time that I've done this book. I've done this book as a discussion group. The first time was with the Scottish Rite with Chris Williams and Brad and Brother Park, Jason Reichenberg. You know, all of my pals over at the Scottish Rite. We all and many more got together and talked philosophy and turned a little bit into theology and even further. I mean, we talk about anything and everything because we trust each other and we know that we're just in it to try and grow. So, without going any further, with that, the Kybalion, the first chapter is a little bit. It's more of just a history lesson, pretty much of how this book came about, and it talks about, the teachings of this book being more of lessons from uh, thrice Hermes. I don't know how to say it correctly. Chris probably does. Um, but they're the Hermetic principles that came about from the teachings of thrice Hermes, and he was thought to be, or um, he was turned into a god by the Greeks and by the Egyptians, and as Thoth, and oh my goodness, and Hermes, the god, and from what I remember from reading the chapter, it talked about um, how these principles were written back in around 500 BC, uh, before Common Era, and really a lot of the principles stem back even from uh, Zoroastrianism. Is that how you say it? Is that the proper way to say it?
Sounds good.
And
Sounds proper.
which that, if you dig further back, it really stems from a lot of the Hindu teachings, which is really fascinating once you start taking that deep dive. So without anything else, that's the basic gist of what chapter one was alluding to, as to the origins of these principles that we're going to be going through. And so if anyone has anything they would like to talk about that really stood out to them in this chapter, then we're just going to open it up and round table this bad boy, and discuss what you're thinking, and wherever it goes, it goes. And it doesn't matter if somebody goes down this rabbit hole and you want to talk about something else, you're free to do that. This is just a round table of talking. Just imagine that you got a scotch in your hand, and it goes wherever the conversation goes.
I'll start off because there's quite a bit of mention of Egypt in ancient Egypt and the mystery schools of ancient Egypt, and it's pretty well known, especially with like your Greek philosophers. Anyone who was really anyone in the philosophy scene at the time, they made some kind of a pilgrimage to Egypt, and they spent time going through the rites of passage and studying at the mystery schools there. Didn't Jesus also live in Egypt for quite a while?
From what I understand, he traveled
Yeah,
up that way
I
and
think
and
so.
did a little bit of time up there.
Yeah.
Spent a little
So
bit of
it's
time up.
there's we have it on record that there was definitely quite a few mystery schools, and they were definitely, if you wanted to be respected or well-rounded as a philosopher, you traveled to Egypt and you studied there. And so there was definitely something going on. There was something to it, and it's really no surprise to me that they would make reference to Egypt in the first chapter. Of course, there was also like a whole Egypt was also all the rage kind of in the like Enlightenment period, also like the early, like in esoteric circles, early 1900s and things like that, which is about kind of when this whole book came about. So Egypt was the rage, and that's not to diminish the role that Egypt might have had, but I'm just saying that Egypt's a common theme. I mean, go to any Scottish Rite temple and look around. It's Egypt and esotericism kind of come hand in hand. So it's interesting to see that in the book. Yes,
Go
Brad?
for it.
Yep.
So yeah, on that topic of Egypt and our discussion last week about um, Hermes finding the later discovered by Hermes something about the Constitution thereupon declares that one of these pillars was later discovered by Hermes,
Mm-hmm.
and wasn't that allegedly after the flood of Noah?
I believe so, based off the context of the passage.
So back to this chapter, and you were talking about, oh God, I lost my train of thought. So you talked about, Noah had three sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And Ham was the one who moved to Egypt and was cast away out that way, and that's where the Egyptians came from, allegedly, uh, according to the Bible, which is interesting.
I'm trying to pull
That
that
is
back up right now. So okay.
that is interesting.
Yeah. And then in this chapter, it talked about how Abraham obtained his wisdom from Hermes, allegedly.
Yeah.
And
Do you know when Abraham was said to have lived? I'm not sure myself. I'm just, if you don't know, it's okay. I was just curious. That's another rabbit
Abraham
hole I'm going to
preceded-
have to look at.
it was after
Abraham
Noah.
preceded- Was it after Noah?
Yeah. Because Abraham had Isaac, and Isaac had Jacob, and Jacob had the 12 sons with the three concubines and all that. But yeah, it was after.
Yeah, after Noah, you could almost say it was like at the beginning of the Egyptian. And I'm going out on a limb here, right? So I would say it's kind of looking at early Egypt days, right? Not so super early, but Egypt was a thing because you also know Abraham goes down into different countries, right, and then comes back up into Canaan, which is now the kind of what we know as the Middle East, the area around Israel, all of that as well.
Yeah, Egypt was a big civilization back in 3000 BCE, and Abraham was thought to have been born around 2166 BCE. Okay.
Okay.
I was just trying to put that in my head as to where he fit into this picture.
Yeah, I don't want to reread the whole text, but I did find it back in the Secret Teachings of All Ages, and it just says that Hermes found the pillar allegedly, one of the pillars, I think the marble one. So it would be after the flood, but it doesn't say when. And you could talk pretty broadly as far as timeline with Hermes goes, because I mean everything gets blown up, right? But according to the legend, he lived several hundred years, so you can't look at it by a typical human timeline. I don't even think he died, did he? He was one of the cases where he was like ascended, basically, I believe.
Interesting. Well,
Maybe Go ahead.
go ahead. Did you have something else to say?
Yeah, I was gonna say he also wrote the Emerald Tablets, though, which is interesting. Might be worth going down one day.
Well, absolutely. Hermes wrote, thousands of manuscripts, but a lot of them were lost in the fire of Alexandria, and so
That still
you know
hurts. It's still too soon.
now we only have what we have, but the out of all the thousands of things that he wrote about, I think what is most important is what we're learning today, or what we're starting to learn today, because these are not only, we can look at it from a historical context all we want to, but the reality is that the spiritual nature of this journey we're fixing to take is beyond anything it's beyond contestation.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what movie that's from, but it's one of my favorite lines of all time. Oh, it's from A Knight's Tale, when the king knights him and says, "And it's beyond contestation."
Is that Heath Ledger? One of the old Heath
Yeah,
Ledger
it's
movies?
that movie. Yeah, but anyways, and there's truth to that, because it is a guide to truths in our existence that no one can deny. When you get down to the fundamental basics of life and death, and where we fit on this rock, and what's going on throughout the world, and what we can see and even what we can't see, man, it's just all there.
Yeah.
And every religion has been founded on these basic principles. I even believe that Christianity was originally more about Hermetic principle than you know the worship and idolization of one man as it is today. I think that Jesus was teaching something completely different from what we're learning today about Jesus.
Yeah. And
Uh,
that's
and that's me, but I think that we're there.
I
That
think when we get through with this whole breakdown, like the entire book, you'll look back, and this has happened. That's why I say this. You'll look back and hear things from like quotes from Jesus and things like that, and you'll say that sounds an awful lot like something hermetic. And yeah, to your point, I think Jesus was trying to bring God and man closer together, and not really create a church that was the because the church comes between God and man. You can't do nothing. You can't reach God except through the church. That's something that we implemented. I think that's the opposite of what Jesus was trying to do. But yeah, sorry. I just that's I think you're 100% accurate on that. Does anyone else have anything?
anybody else?
Yeah, so y'all talked about Jesus going to Egypt, and that happened whenever he was little, like he was young, because Herod was trying to kill all the young babies at that time, and to protect Jesus, they took him into Egypt until Herod died, and then when he died, he came back. So he spent all his first part of his life over there in Egypt. Um,
Chris, did you have something?
yeah, go ahead.
I was
Oh,
gonna, I didn't get all the information that you were gonna do chapter 1 tonight, and I haven't gone through this book since the last time we did in the Sky's Right CME class. But one of the things that's kind of cool is, and you started to touch on it a little bit, is that the Kybalion and the Hermetic principles are dualistic in most all respects. And it's interesting to, as you go through this book and as you think about Hermeticism, how it rubs up against the monotheism of 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 regular religion, and how it, instead of rejecting it, the monotheistic beliefs kind of incorporate it in a lot of ways. That's something to think about. It pops into your head every once in a while, because I was thinking about it one day and wondered how the heck they reconcile having a dualistic, you know, set of principles, mystical, religious, however you want to do it, principles that you would think would rub up against and maybe be against the monotheism that's being taught, but not really. Pretty interesting.
Something I found interesting in this chapter was the mention that Dennis hinted out too. You know, all religions kind of start with these same fundamental beliefs as what you have in the book. However, what happens is mankind happens, right? People happen, and it's just like Freemasonry. Freemasonry is perfect, but people are not, and that's why we end up with convoluted philosophies and drama and stuff like that. It's the same thing that happens with all of these religions. You have these key fundamental ideas, and then over time they're like, well, we need to elevate these people and make them priests, and we need to really like these dogmas start arising, and people start adopting these dogmas and things like this. And over time, it's not really quite what it looked like. And you can see where it all started. You can see the core beliefs and the core ideas, which I also believe are pretty universal across most religions. But it's just over time these dogmas came in, and it took it in a different direction.
that's part of the beauty and wisdom that we deal with something like this. I believe it's the fact that it is all encompassing with almost every religion, and I would venture to say every religion, because they all touch on um, these type of, and frankly, I'll put it out there, these type of occult beliefs. And it's the I think that with all of these religions, this is the magical aspect of those religions, that people, we don't just read, when we're reading at face value, we're never going to reach that we're never going to connect with those thoughts. We have to actually study, and then we start, and then later, after we study these different principles, that's when we connect dots, like you were saying earlier. We'll go back and read these parables from Jesus and be able to connect the dots and say, well, hey, that I think that's really talking about this, and maybe not what I would normally think at face value. But if we I I I think that that's the beauty of of these principles, is that they are traced back to all the religions, and they're the connecting. It really does feel like the ancient mystery school that we're tapping into here today, in today's day and age. We're tapping into the ancient mystery school of all religions. I truly believe that that's what we're dealing with when we start going down the rabbit hole of Hermeticism, and even other um, thoughts and writings, manuscripts from other religions that were that predate these Hermetic principles. Well, it doesn't really predate it. They come from uh, these religions. They just they weren't written in this way to make them understandable until later on.
I
And
think that's
it's true that as we go through this, these Hermetic principles will apply to every religion, every mystery school, everything. I mean, they're they're so basic and so, you can't change them. They're there, and you can't deny that they're there. And just because some guy says, I don't like my religion, I'm going to create a new religion because I don't like to eat meat, and if you don't like my religion, we're going to kill you, and all that crap. That none of that stuff applies. That's what the beauty is of Freemasonry is that if guys really truly understand it, they know that they don't care what your religion is. They only care that you believe in that supreme being. And I truly believe, I'm a Christian, but I truly believe that Jesus, if he were here right here and now, he'd be really pissed at how his religion turned out. So I think as we go through this, and we, going through the morals and dogma and the Sky's right, and all those degrees, it's pretty much a course on religion, on comparative religion, and when you see it, Pike's right, and it wasn't Pike that said it in the beginning, but Pike's right. Every religion sprang from the same seed, and you know, it's amazing to see and to understand, and to and when we go through this Kybalion, oh, it was a real eye opener for me when we went through it the first time.
It's a great book. It's gonna
Yes.
be very, very fun. I wanted to say that something that always struck pretty strongly with me is the quote, milk for the babies and meat for the strong men. And they don't, I think we get more into that later in the book, but the reason that this always kind of resonated with me is what's the other saying? When the No, I don't think that applies here. But there's quite a bit of talk about how Hermeticism had this veil of secrecy, and you
It
see
does
this all.
apply. I know what you're going to say. It's that quote that you give all the time, that when the student is ready, the master will appear.
Yeah, yeah. But you see this a lot in the mystery schools, the ones we know about, the information we have. There's also quite a bit of secrecy. We know with Pythagoras, it was a very lengthy vetting process before you even were allowed in. And what's interesting to this from a Masonic context is you see where the intent for that same approach was in our fraternity. And much like we said, much like we were talking about, you have these core ideas, and over time, these dogmas and these other um, I know better than my predecessors kind of mentality comes in, and it starts to get watered down. And so we have the formality. We have where you can see that it used to be quite a bit of secrecy, and it used to be difficult to come in, but unfortunately, in many lodges, that's not a thing anymore. And so it's interesting to see, at least from my perspective, um, that the hermetic values exist in Freemasonry, and a lot of the same concepts about the importance of secrecy, the points about being careful, because it doesn't matter if Dennis and I don't say a word, if we're really good at being secret, but then I'll just use Brad as an example. Brad joins, but he's you're the first
What?
one on my list.
What?
but but if Brad joins and he's not good at keeping secrets, it doesn't matter how good me and Dennis are all of a sudden. So you have to have that process, that vetting process. You have to be rigorous about who you're letting in. So just from a Masonic context, yeah, I see that parallel. Brad, I'm just literally it's me and
Yeah.
then you. That's why I picked you.
What?
So.
Why are you picking on Brad? I mean, golly.
I know, I know. And he's one of our most devout, listeners, and he studies more than all of us combined these
Yeah.
days.
I think also to kind of piggyback on what Justin was saying, there's another parallel that we can draw in that text. It talks about how the Hermeticists did that, and it caused them to avoid the persecution. And I think that that's something that we've got today, um, not just with religion. Obviously, there's very divisive groups out there that feel that their religion is the best and it's the only way, so on and so forth. But also, in our fraternity, with us being less selective, uh, as everybody's referenced in the last few decades, um, it also has come to that point to where our information is more out there in the media, and I think that has kind of led to a little bit more of that persecution, bringing back some of those old conspiracy theories, the Taxel hoax, and all that, and it's kind of led to some of the stuff that we've had in the last few years. Some of those unfortunate events like we had down in South Texas. Um, targeting our members of our group.
Yeah, it's funny to me that you mentioned that because it does create persecution, and that persecution, uh, for a large portion of it, it still stems from things like the Taxel hoax and the Morgan affair and things like that, which were results in us not being secretive, results in us not vetting properly who came in, and that created that even some of the stuff that's been obviously disproven, it is so ingrained into the conspiracy kind of into their paradigm that nothing will disprove that in their minds. And so you're absolutely right, and that ties really neatly, I think, to the importance of not just having that secrecy, but also being really careful about who's in, because the effects can be short and short and small, right? It could just be like a small thing, like you let someone in that shouldn't join, and then they decide this isn't for me and they leave. Or you let somebody in that really shouldn't join and they do this whole expose. And it was just there's been thousands of exposés, don't get me wrong, but it was the right person, the right time, the right state of affairs to really, really stir the pot nationally. And so yeah, you're right.
You know what I think has been more damaging than all of that? I think the unveiling to the wrong people and it being open to interpretation to them. And and
The unveiling.
here's what I mean. I think that the reason why they they kept it so secret originally was because they didn't want to dilute the message. They didn't want the message to change from what the original intent was. And there was a big fear that if they didn't have the right people in place to receive that message, that it would turn into a different interpretation than what it was, because it can be so universally interpreted to meet just about any need that we have. I mean, look at the Kabbalah. You know, look at the Kabbalah and look at the tree of life. I mean, apply mystery school here. Just about every mystery school can apply their own, self-awareness points in the Sephiroth and make it their own, and it makes sense. And so I think that part of the reason why it was veiled in secrecy from the beginning was to protect the purity of the true nature of the text that we're going to be learning, the principles that we'll be learning.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that we've been the biggest damage to ourselves in not studying enough and falsely interpreting. Well, and I I say that, and I lately I've been trying not to be so judgmental, because I know that I thought differently, 10 years ago than I think today. So I hate to punish myself, my previous self, for having those thoughts, saying that it's not real and it's not true, because those are the thoughts that I had, and they were very real to me and very real interpretations to me at that time. However, I think that at some point we have to, if we don't continue to study and continue to, this is a lifelong journey. If we don't understand that this is a lifelong journey, that we have to continuously feed feed our intellect, then we never really will get to the root understanding of all this. If we just stop at one point, we're gonna miss out. We're gonna miss the boat. We're gonna misinterpret the true intent and meaning of these principles.
And Dennis,
oh, go ahead.
To build on that, right? I think one of the really beautiful things is when you have something that's a symbol, right? Symbolism is going to mean different things to you at different times in your life as well. But also, who are you surrounding yourself with when we think about taking it back to the mystery schools, right? Who are we surrounding ourselves with? Who is that sphere of influence that we have? How are they influencing what we're seeing in the symbols, right? I think there are, in all of this, there's a lot of great underlying universal truth of this is true no matter where it comes from, no matter what lens you put on it, because we push our understanding upon that symbolism itself. And then from there, there's allegory, right? This is a great story or a principle that we need to understand, and then we can apply that through the different phases of our lives. But are we stuck in a single phase, right? Am I stuck in the childlike phase of my life where I only understand this from this single lens? Or have I grown and understood in different phases of my life, in different times of life, how that's going to affect me, right? From a child stage to a young adult stage to a parent stage to early parenthood to now teen. I have a couple teenagers. How does that apply to me now as a parent of teenagers? Things like that. So
it all goes out the door when they become teenagers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, dad knows nothing anymore. So but yeah, but hopefully you're learning and growing through these different phases and different times of your life. And then also you have teachers that come into your life. You have mentors that come in that share, hey, this is my experience with this symbolism. This is my experience with these types of things in life. So that to me is the underlying current is the symbolism, right?
Yeah.
We can apply different things. And then, but who are we influenced by as well?
I like that.
Absolutely. Another important reason why we need to be careful of who we, let into our lives, because they can lead us right out the door from what's important to us. If we let them, if we're open, like I've told each and every one of you that I'm always open to change my mind. You just have to give me a compelling reason to. But I really don't want to let the wrong person into my life that's going to change my mind to hurt everything that I've built my life around.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to let people into my life that are going to tell me that it's crazy for me to love my wife and only want to be married to her. I don't want people like that in my life. And so, just speaking in a layman's terms, but the same thing goes with my with my philosophical beliefs. I guard them, and I only want people that I trust that care about their philosophical beliefs as much as I do. They can be completely different, but I only want people who care about them that passionately and seriously, for me to converse with and contemplate if I'm going to change my philosophical beliefs based off of them. I don't want some fly by night, coming in and wrecking my world.
Yeah. They've done experiments before where if you take something with a really high vibration, I'm not talking like on a spiritual level, I'm talking about just like oscillation, like physical oscillation, sound waves, for example, or something like that. And then you take a really low level vibration and put them in proximity. What will happen is you get equilibrium, right? Because nature is always trying to seek equilibrium. So this higher vibration is going to get brought down, this other vibration is going to get brought up. So it's a one-way thing, right? One benefits, but the other one kind of loses vibration. But if you take a really high vibration and surround it with a whole bunch of low vibrations, more than one, what's going to happen is it's going to be more dramatic for that high vibration. It's going to get brought down. And so, and really the lower ones are going to get brought up as much because the average between all of them is going to be much lower. And this goes back to the people you surround yourself with. If you just dedicate to hanging out with just one guy, and he's at a not I'm trying not to sound like a snob here, but he's at a lower vibration than you are, right? You might break him up a little bit, but you're gonna ultimately, if you're gonna keep hanging out, you're gonna meet in the middle, that kind of thing. But if the people you surround yourself are at this frequency, and you keep trying to burst past that, right? If you keep trying to say, I'm going to improve myself, I'm going to bring myself up by my bootstraps and just keep doing the work, but everyone else you're around is down here, they're going to yank you down every time you're around them. And so
Crabs in a bucket.
what?
Crabs in a bucket.
Crabs in yeah, they pull each other.
Yeah, the best way to keep a crab in a bucket is to put another crab in the bucket with them.
That's funny.
They'll never escape.
That's funny. Crabs in a bucket. But it's true. It goes back to the whole lodge also, right? The lodge needs to be that place where you can go when you're elevated. It's not that place where and that's why some lodges, you go in there and you can feel it. You go in the building and you can feel it immediately. And they can't attract or retain people because you go in and it's like an energy vampire.
They're
Justin just froze.
oh, did he freeze?
He did.
He did
It's
freeze.
so funny looking. The host has frozen. Hopefully this is all getting recorded.
Yeah, he's frozen. All right.
Said the
Oh, there
energy
we go.
vampire.
There he
There we
is.
go. Okay.
He had a twitch.
Y'all were all frozen. I was like, I thought it was just Dennis, and I looked around, and everyone's just kind of like, what's going on?
You were the only one.
Were we all
Oh,
laughing and pointing?
His frequency was off.
Yeah, there was your
Exactly.
vibration.
Your vibration.
So the 246 of us brought your vibration down to zero, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
You realize what you're talking about, though, when you talk about those vibrations. That is a hermetic principle, without a doubt. I mean, it's equilibrium. It's bringing two different vibrations meeting essentially in the middle or in the neutral space. So it's all about hermetic principle. Everything has a hermetic undertone to it.
Yeah. That's why when you have these lodges or you have these brothers and they say, they look back to look at like Chris's book, there's no texts about Freemasonry, and you look historically everyone that was in the government was a Mason. And then people opine now, why is there no people involved in the government and the fraternity? Where's all the doctors and lawyers and things like that? That's because you can't be successful as a doctor or a lawyer or a politician working down here, right? And if I go to a lodge and it's down here, and I'm up here trying to work up here, you're not gonna level. You're not gonna bring them up. You're not gonna bring them up to your level if everyone's down here. And so, yeah, absolutely.
You know, would you mind if I read you something?
Of course, please do.
Listening to you talk about bringing the right guys in and being around the right guys. You know, for one thing, Pike felt that that the Morgan affair did us more good than it did us harm. In fact, he said he said it was responsible for removing all the guys that shouldn't have been in the fraternity in the first place. And to a certain extent, I believe that's true.
Because they got scared and left.
Well, they got scared and left, and you know they some of them needed to leave that couldn't figure out a way to leave, and some just didn't need to be there in the first place. And you know what? I've got some books that my grandfather gave me. The book is called Jewels of Masonic Oratory, and they're grand orations from all the way back in the 1800s. And you read these grand orations one by one, and you find out that they were dealing with the exact same problems that we're dealing with today. Exact in every way, you know, the wrong guys in the fraternity, you know, guys thinking about the wrong thing, you know, things, you know, guys on ego trips, you know, trying to take over this and take it's all there. It's always been there. But one of the things that and I've been a Mason for shit dang near 35 years, and I have on at least 20 occasions during that time known exactly what Freemasonry is, and without any shadow of a doubt, and every time I've changed my mind, and I know I'm going to do it again at some point. But one of the things that keeps coming back, I get so irritated. You know, I wrote articles, and they're in that book you just referenced. There's no text without Freemasonry. It's called. I wrote 2 articles. Where are the secrets? You know, or what happened to the secrets? And because it always bothered me that what the hell, you know, we're always worried about these secrets. The night I became a Mason, I'm laying in my bed and I'm thinking about it because we're all hiring a kite that night, and I'm thinking, you know, about everything that happened, and all of a sudden I sat up straight in the bed, and I was with this, my mind's about to explode, and I'm thinking, oh my God, they told me about 17 times not to tell the secrets, but they didn't give me any secrets. I had no secrets. What the heck? How am I gonna, you know, there were no secrets, and I did not understand at the time, but you know, we're so concerned about these secrets, and I truly believe that the secrets are mine alone, and they're yours alone, they're Brad's alone, they're Jacob's alone, and you can't. If I wanted to tell you my secrets, I couldn't, because you wouldn't understand what I was saying, because it only pertains to me and my life experiences, and of course, you know, a person's brain is probably the most advanced supercomputer there is, and the most screwed up at the same time, and nobody hears, sees, feels, or reacts the same way as anybody else. But I wanted to read you this because this kind of, I want you to consider that Freemasonry might be intentionally the way it is for a reason. Anybody ever heard of Manly P. Hall?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I've heard that name before.
Well, in one of Manly P. Hall's writings, he says Freemasonry is a fraternity within a fraternity, an outer organization concealing an inner brotherhood of the elect. Before it is possible to intelligently discuss the origin of the craft, it is necessary, therefore, to establish the existence of these 2 separate yet interdependent orders, the one visible and the other invisible. The visible society is a splendid camaraderie of free and accepted men enjoined to devote themselves to ethical, educational, fraternal, patriotic, and humanitarian concerns. The invisible society is a secret and most august fraternity whose members are dedicated to the service of a mysterious arcanorum. Those brethren who have essayed to write the history of their craft have not included in their disquisitions the story of that truly inner secret society which is to the body Freemasonic what the heart is to the body human. In each generation, only a few are accepted into the inner sanctuary of the work. But these are veritable princes of the truth, and their sainted names shall be remembered in future ages together with the seers of Freemasonry, or the prophets of the elder world. Those, though the great initiate philosophers of Freemasonry can be counted upon one's fingers, yet their power is not to be measured by the achievements of ordinary men. They are dwellers upon the threshold of the innermost masters of that secret doctrine which forms the invisible foundation of every great theological and rational institution. And that's just the first two paragraphs of that thing.
Which book?
But
Which book is that from, Chris?
Man.
It's from the Rosicrucian and Masonic Origins by Manly P. Hall.
Man, I
But what
forget that.
but what he's saying, and I'm starting to agree with him. Okay, I'm starting to think this way, is that we're all part of this great, wonderful fraternity, and if we're true seekers and we're learning everything we can learn, and we're trying to get all this information, at some point it becomes a one-man journey and not a whole fraternity.
Yeah.
Individually, each one of us.
That's true.
And it's something to think about.
I could definitely see what Melly P. Hall was talking about. I mean, look at us here. We're all Freemasons, right? But
Yeah.
But this is a different conversation than you'll
Right.
see in most lodges.
Right. And he may be saying essentially that all of this craziness that we're talking about right now that irritates the crap out of every one of us, the wrong guys in the fraternity, because he's my buddy, not because he's qualified, or, all this crap that we're dealing with all the time is there for a reason. It's a veil.
Yes.
Who knows? I don't know.
I tell you what, the way he describes wow. So like
You almost said inner circle, didn't you?
Yes, the way he describes that inner circle. Wow. I tell you what, that's a legacy I want to leave behind.
Yep.
I want to be thought of as that guy.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's the path I want to travel.
Yes.
That's the path I'm looking to travel. Am I traveling it now? I don't know. I don't think maybe we ever know. But we
Oh, you're too modest, Chris. You're working on it. I think we're all working on it. That's why we're here.
You're working on it, but you're constantly saying to yourself, am I doing the right thing?
You're constantly second guessing everything.
Yeah.
Well, you get my phone call, so you know that I'm constantly second guessing everything I do.
We are. And I think if we are on that path, we have to be constantly second guessing. In fact, I think that there's not a master mason alive, if he's doing his work the proper way, is not second guessing everything he thinks, says, and does every minute of every day.
Same thing as being like a parent or a father figure or something like that. Like if you're not second guessing yourself, are you really growing at all anyway?
Exactly. Too many master masons get their third degree and do their work, and they walk out going, now I'm a better man. And they're no better than when they knocked on the door in the first place. They got work to do. All they did is get a toolbox. They got to start working.
Yep. Well, that's something we've been talking about. We've mentioned pretty regularly here lately with our shows, is the different shows, is that, we are the Freemason knows that he is always a master and always an apprentice. Thank you. Everybody take a picture of it real quick.
Always an apprentice. They say that all the time, that we're the only organization where you get your master's degree before you earn it.
Yes. Yes.
You were talking before you read from the quote about the secrets and everything like that, and it reminded me of like a analogy I've given in the past, where if you have like a village at the foot of this monastery, and you have like this monk that's lived up there and meditated for decades, and he's very wise, and he knows something he knows something that these people down here in the village don't. So they go up there and bang on the door and like, you need to tell us what this secret is that you spend all this time meditating. You're so wise. Why are you hoarding these secrets to yourself? Share them with us. But the thing is, they can't be shared for the same reason you're saying. Like you cannot articulate experience. You can say, well, this is what happened to me, but it has to be lived. The
Mhm.
secrets, the secrets of the universe, the mysteries have to be lived. They have to be experienced. And even then you might not understand them.
That's the
Wisdom
key.
actually, yeah.
That's the key. You have to be able to understand them. That's
Mhm.
why that quote, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Mhm.
Well, think about that a little deeper. Maybe the teacher is your own self.
Often I think it is.
Oh, wow. Hmm.
I
Yeah.
think you're right.
When the two combined within yourself, that's when
Yes.
that's pretty awesome. That's a cool thought.
but also it sounds very linear when you say it like that. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And I don't think it has to be the case. I think it can be something that happened 10 years ago or something like that. But you're just not ready to learn from it until right now. When you're reflecting upon something. And it happens all the time. You think about something that happened in your life, you're like, "Oh my God, I never looked at it through this lens." It's because you've changed, you've grown, and you're able to look at it through that perspective now that you couldn't before. Sorry, Brad. What would you have?
Yeah, I was just going to add to what you're saying. In the introduction to the first chapter or the book, right at the very last line of the introduction, it said, if you are a true, and I wrote it down, if you are a true student, you will be able to work out and apply these principles. If not, then you must develop yourself into one, or otherwise the Hermetic teachings will be as words, words, words to you.
Exactly.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
Exactly.
yeah, I like that. It's that cause and effect thing.
It's very insightful. I like that.
Yeah, thing gets a whole lot more fun the more you go along in the book,
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah,
Well, I mean everything in masonry's is hermetic. The black and white pavement, checkered pavement, the the pillars, are all hermetic. I mean, all those things are hermetic. Hermetic. It's amazing. It's fun.
It
Yes.
is fun. It is fun. And
sun
that's the
and the
thing.
moon.
Yeah, the sun and moon. Well, we mentioned this before on the show where if you don't have any esoteric background and you go through the degrees, they are what they are. They're still rites of passage. They're life changing. But say if you had studied these for several years and then go through the degrees, you see things that other people don't see. And it's the same thing where even after the fact, if you start studying after the fact and you start you could read the Kybalion and then go sit through a master's degree, for example, and be like, whoa, is that Kabbalistic? I think that's Kabbalistic. That reminds me a lot of something I read about. And so there was definite and intentional references to many ancient esoteric practices in our degree. And it's deliberate. You just
It
you have
is.
to you have to know to see it.
And you have to realize that the great majority of our brothers in this fraternity don't give a flying flip about any of it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. That's what's so hard and so frustrating sometimes, because as Masons, whatever path you decide to take, whether it's we're a charity when we're not, but that's a path that people can take. But whatever path you take, you got to find the people that are on that path with you,
Mm.
because you're not going to grow and be able to get that deeper understanding without those people.
Very
Yeah.
right.
That's absolutely right.
I
We've
got
discussed. Go
I
ahead.
got a lot of my growth in that area, sitting in a hotel room after officer leadership training with a big, huge rum and coke in my hand and one in Kohanke's hands, and us talking till late at night, early in the morning. And those were pretty rewarding discussions, I can tell you.
I've had the
And
good
that's what you
fortune
got to
of
do.
sitting in on a few of those conversations once or twice, and you're
Yeah.
right. I've learned a lot just listening to you guys.
Well, we had fun, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, everybody knows that those are my favorite times. Is it's going to Grand Lodge isn't about the hoopla of Grand Lodge. It's about the evenings, sharing with brothers that I know um, are there for the same reason. Of course, the business is important, but that's not our favorite part.
No.
Yeah.
Our favorite part is it starts around 10, 10:30, 11.
Right. Right. And hopefully you haven't consumed enough adult beverages that you don't
Right.
understand what the heck's being talked about.
Yes.
All I
Which
remember is Chris had this flask that you took the cap off and it bloop, 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 filled up the right amount. It was
yes,
perfect every
Right,
time.
the
right,
exact
right.
right.
And he showed it to me like 3 times in the past, like, check this flask out. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I forgot about it every time.
Oh, that's
well,
funny.
Specs has them and they're great. I'll tell you that.
Oh man. So back to the book itself. Now we've gone on a couple of cool little rabbit holes. But it did bring up the fact that the Hermetic principles kind of derived from Zoroastrianism, and then I dug in a little bit further and saw that Zoroastrianism, I can't say that 3 times fast, um, came about, after Hinduism and during. Now, what's interesting is, so you've got the basic 4 books of Hinduism, and then later on, like um, several hundred years later, these other offshoots of, and I can't remember. It starts with a Upanana, Upan something.
You're
These
killing
these
us.
these I know I'm killing myself. I'm just totally causing everybody to disregard anything that I'm saying. So,
Oompa
but
loompa.
during, later on, after Hinduism was around for quite some time, um, this offshoot of books came out that delved deeper into the actual philosophical nature of Hinduism, and deeper into the um, basically the secret teachings of Hinduism, and that's about the time that Zoroastrianism came about as well. And I have a feeling that they're pretty closely intertwined, and that is almost the origin story of Hermeticism. I need to study it more, because I've obviously just started thinking about it once I've you know read this chapter. I started thinking about, well, yeah, I can read this at face value, or I can start digging a little bit and try to see where this stuff comes from. And man, it all just connects the dots right there, that that that's that's what was going on. And after I studied a little bit about Hinduism, it's, you know people don't realize that it's kind of monotheistic as well, and people don't really realize that.
So I'm going to go out on more of a leap of imagination than you. You have a very grounded and probably well documented belief on where this might have originated. So I'll just say, so when Plato traveled to Egypt, and he was speaking with the wise men then at the time for the mystery schools, they attributed all their knowledge and everything from an older civilization, Atlantis, right? And so I
I knew
personally
where you were going with that.
I personally believe that the Hermetic beliefs as they were maybe traveled from their remnants from something much older like Atlantis or something like that, which Hermetic beliefs in this idealized continent totally makes sense to me. And I know it's really just kind of like a big leap of faith to even say that, but the whole fact that Plato went there, he studied the mystery schools, and he was told point blank. I can't talk tonight either. He was told point blank that the the ability to build the pyramids, everything Egypt has came from something much older, came from Atlantis. So that's just, I guess I'm just being a little bit romantic about it, but I like that idea.
You're very romantic about it, but
Yeah,
I do like it. I do
Yeah.
like it. I dig it.
yeah.
And the reason why is because the reality is that, we measure time based off of, or history based off of uh proof. All historians require proof. And so things weren't written until a certain time. They just weren't. And so a lot of this stuff was passed down from mouth to ear for generations and generations, thousands of years before it ever hit a stone or tablet or whatever. Um, so yeah, to to think that the origins of these simple truths in nature and spirituality, um, to think that they only happened in this certain time frame would just really be ignorant of anyone.
Well, they're very simple. They
But
can
I
they can
think
spring
that
out of nowhere. You're right.
right, but I think that the written portion of it sprung from around that time period.
And what's funny about what you just said, and you're right. Like we'll read through this book, and honestly, there's nothing mind blowing in this book. It's all very simple principles that are they're easy to grasp, probably difficult to understand, but the concepts themselves are very simple. But the issue is, as humans, we can't just take something simple and keep it, right? We have to complicate everything, which is why when you have these religions that are founded around these simple principles, they're not simple after 100 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, because we like to complicate things. Chris, I saw you
Not
left a
not
comment.
only do we complicate everything, we decide we're going to defend our complication of the complication to the death.
Yes. Yes.
There's what you were talking about just a second ago is I don't know if you're into this guy. Do you watch anything or read anything by Graham Hancock?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Have you watched the 7 episodes of the Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix?
Yes, we have.
Yes,
Oh my
yes.
God. Yeah. There's
I
no
Yes.
started
doubt in my
season better,
mind
but
that there was a highly intelligent civilization long before anything we know. And
Yes.
I'll never doubt that. But those were pretty special.
if there wasn't an advanced civilization at some point before us, then that would be the only thing in nature that is not cyclical, which
Exactly.
would make no sense.
Well,
Exactly.
and that's part of the Hindu belief as well, is that every uh I can't remember the number of years, but every through this cycle, every so often the equilibrium of life is so off balance with to the detriment of humankind that it gets wiped out somehow,
Mhm.
and then it starts fresh.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's been um different accounts of the same floods and stuff like that, because it happened, and it probably happened many times before,
Well,
because we've seen, I mean, look at the Mayan and all the different pyramids and stuff. We've seen where nature will just take back over, do its thing. When as soon as we're gone, it just takes back over, does its thing, and then we pop back up again at some future period. I believe in that. I believe that.
yeah. 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 The unusual coincidence of Quetzalcoatl and those two other giant beings that showed up in hundreds and thousands of miles away from each other and taught their civilizations the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Too much of a to be a coincidence. No.
So the question from Brad was, does the Greek god Hermes have anything to do with this Hermes?
Yes.
So yes. So Hermes Trismegistus, or however it's actually pronounced, was eventually deified in Egypt, known as Thoth or Thoth. But in Greek, they kept the name Hermes, and in Rome, the Roman believed he was Mercury. What's interesting to me also, while we're kind of on this, anytime you see a deity with some kind of a staff in their hand, that represents like they're bridging the gap between like heaven and earth. Thoth is often portrayed with a staff. Mercury has like a rod, but it's the same principle. Sometimes he's with a staff, but they're bridging the gap between heaven and earth. And what that means is Thoth or Hermes, their Hermetic knowledge is divine knowledge. It is an understanding of how the universe fundamentally works. And by sharing that with the people, they're bridging that gap between heaven and earth. So anytime you see like a messenger god, which also Mercury, right? Any kind of like a messenger god or some kind of like a staff in their hand, that's what that's telling you. They're bridging that gap. So if you ever wondered it, like anytime you see like a messenger or even like a relay race, why these rods? Like, what's the point of that? It's because you're sharing information. It's the same concept, like the relay. Is that what it's called? Like the relay race where you pass the rod?
Yeah.
It's the wisdom. Like you have this wisdom how to do track, but you're getting this wisdom from one.
You're sharing
But
you're sharing energy. You're sharing
energy.
momentum.
Yeah.
You are sharing, but at the same time you're creating and establishing and keeping a connection.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you pass that off, that connection stays there every time.
I like that.
Yes, a piece of it stays with the creator as well. Yes.
Well, it's also the concept of like the Olympic torch, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're sharing,
Exactly.
you're passing this light. I like this. I like where this is going. This is a good conversation.
think-
Well, I was thinking when I was reading, I was thinking about when man and woman come together and they make a child. You know, the
Where's this conversation going now?
a
Talking
piece
about
of
stabs, and now you're talking about
it's
that escalated quickly.
It's crazy how well, because there's male and female in all things.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's crazy to think about the fact that there's no stronger truth proven than the creation of the rebirth or the birth of anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's the male and female present in that child, and so and then it continues on and continues on. It's not just with that one child, but it happened with these other two beings that created this one child. And so you've got this multitude of stability in male and female attributes in every being on this planet.
Like that.
Everything on this planet has male and female dang it, I just said it.
Energy.
Attributes.
Attributes. Yes. Everything on this planet.
Daniel, were you about to say something?
And it shares a certain energy. It requires it to have that energy. Go ahead.
I was gonna take it back to the rod for just a second, and the Hermes, the staff is two serpents intertwined on a staff, and then for me, where one of my real rabbit holes was thinking about this, and I think about Moses in the Bible, and when the Israelites are in the desert and they're bitten by snakes, and he raises the staff upon the snake, right, or the snake, the bronze serpent upon his staff, right, and just that symbolism. Again, to me, like a very base level symbolism of a serpent on a staff is a very, very interesting thing, right? You want to talk about serpents and rebirth, and like, serpents shed their skin, and there's rebirth symbolized in that, and just a lot of different symbolism that is very basic to a lot of that story. If we look at it in Christianity or in this, in this context, the Greek or the Roman mythology as well. So, very interesting to me some symbolism there and some thoughts that I had around that.
Oh yeah, and the fact that the snake, if you go back to the snake in the Garden of Eden, I mean, ultimately, what that snake is offering is wisdom and
Yep.
intellect. It's also a symbolism to me. It's a symbolism of the knowing of the intellect and wisdom. So when I see a snake in that situation, I'm thinking of passing knowledge, passing on knowledge without even hearing what Justin had said before. I didn't even realize. I just now connected the two. I had an aha moment right here on the show that's the passing of knowledge. That's what the serpent represents.
Yeah, but also like
Yeah.
when you have the two serpents facing each other, you could also look at that like a dual, like an emblem of dualism, like you were talking about. You have
Duality.
duality, yeah. I was also going to point out, like if you look at look at Lord of the Rings, for example, your Gandalfs, right? Your
Oh, here we
sages,
go. Oh my
your
gosh.
wise men are often associated with staves. And why is that? For the same reason. They're bridging the gap, right? Like Gandalf wasn't really he was a main character, but he wasn't an active party member so much as he was a mentor and a facilitator of the adventure, right? He was bridging that gap between divine wisdom, what needed to be done in Middle Earth, and facilitating what needed to happen. But you see the same thing with Merlin also carrying the staff. Any kind of wise man is often the hermit on the tarot. Any kind of wise man. In fact, I think there's multiple tarot cards like that. Anytime you see somebody with a staff or a rod, look at the role they are filling, because it's going to represent wisdom, and it's also going to represent not divine intervention so much as it'll represent higher knowledge or higher understanding, and using that to benefit people.
Yeah.
You got Dennis looking
Moses
out.
Moses parted the Red Sea with the staff,
Mm-hmm.
and he hit the rock and water came out of it in the desert
Yeah,
with the staff.
bridging that gap. Then
I
what
gotta
do you got?
be the magus of power.
Oh yeah, there you go. See, there's a staff right there.
Yeah, you had totally lost me until you brought Merlin into it. So you bridged the gap of generations. I'm sitting there thinking,
Talking about
freaking
the old.
Lord of the Rings. What are you talking about? And then you say Merlin. It's like, oh, okay, now I know who you're talking about. Now I know what you're saying.
Yeah, Gandalf also said, "You shall not pass." So if you don't understand, maybe you shouldn't pass.
So isn't
Now,
the symbol for pharmacy has the two snakes around the thing, and
It is.
they're
Yep.
It is.
they're like alchemists, right?
Yeah.
They do the pharmacology and make medicines by
It's called
mixing.
Well, you know where that came from, right? In that story, the same story that he was talking about before, is that God got mad at everybody and created had all these snakes out there biting them
Snakes,
and
yeah,
killing them,
right.
and they were asking God to, what can we do to take care of us? He said, put a snake on a staff, and when the people look at the snake, they'll be instantly cured.
Yeah,
And so modern science has created that staff with those two snakes to represent being cured, medicine and being cured. It's kind
interesting.
of cool how it hops around, from one thing to the next.
yeah.
Very cool.
I like that. I didn't catch that reference, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's called a. I'm gonna butcher it. Caduceus. That's the name.
Caduceus, yeah, you're right.
Caduceus. So
Yeah,
that's the actual term for that staff with the
yeah.
snakes. Um, that's a really interesting story about the snakes you were sharing, though. I wonder if there's something deeper to that, like more symbolic. Like what were the snakes, and because everything, just like we were talking about Freemasonry, you have the outside Freemasonry, then you have like the inside that actually, that interprets the meaning and everything like that. I find that often with religion too. You have the very superficial, I read the words and this is exactly what it was, but you also have the deeper, like, okay, what is this? What is
Yeah.
this really? What are these really representing? So It's gonna put me down a rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah,
I
there's no doubt the story was allegorical, and there's a lot of meanings there.
Yes.
Find that
Yeah.
rabbit hole and go down it.
It's
Yes.
also really interesting because Quetzalcoatl is a feathered serpent, Justin.
Mm.
And, so there's another layer to go down that rabbit hole with.
True.
So you bring up a really interesting point, though, Daniel, is that we talked about, we hinted at this earlier, is you have these symbols, you have this belief system, these hermetic concepts, but also just these symbols themselves, where they're universal and they tend to represent the same thing all across the world. Like Quetzalcoatl, you got the Japanese dragons, they represented like wisdom. You have these serpent figures that have these certain representations, and in fact, I would say until really the whole Genesis story came about and people started perceiving the snake as the devil, that really snakes start to take like this more sinister symbolism upon themselves.
The dragons that you're mentioning, a lot of them are feathered serpents.
Mm-hmm.
And that, so you're absolutely right. I mean, a lot of the symbolism transcends cultures and I'm sorry, I now I've been looking at all these different cards, and man, there's just stabs all over the place.
Yeah. But even
You'll find, Justin, you'll find as you go down that rabbit hole, there's two different staffs that are both kind of used in the medical field. The caduceus, you guys talking about the two snakes, but then the rod of Alcipius is a single snake on a staff, and he was a Greek god who was kind of tasked with medicine and healing and all that kind of stuff as well. And that's what we have on the Star of Life that they use as like the EMS symbol.
interesting.
Something that we learned about going through EMT school.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Nice.
So yeah, he does have a rod. Interesting. Yeah, I have to look into his backstory some, see kind of what role he played. I saw he had a big. I'm just got his wiki up. I mean, he played a role with healing and things like that. Interesting.
Yeah, it was a big. I guess he was one of the gods in the pantheon. He had several temples all over ancient Greece, and that was where Hippocrates was said to have studied, and he is touted as the father of medicine.
Mm-hmm.
From a man level as opposed to the god over it. But that's why they call it the Hippocratic Oath that doctors take. It comes from Hippocrates.
Nice. So it would be really interesting to see why we have these healing deities associated with stabs. Also, I think I can speculate that they're bridging that gap, like divine intervention to help someone down here, kind of bridging that gap. But yeah, I'm gonna look more into this. This is opening a whole lot of. I got like 3 cans of worms just sitting here on my desk right now.
Now, with that being said, it's been a very good talk tonight, and I can't wait for the next one. But I think it's time to do closing thoughts because, we've got an hour and a half in, and I think this will be a great episode. I don't think that there's anything anybody should be ashamed of saying on this show, and I would like to share it once we go through a little bit further. We may need to go through the whole book first before we start sharing these, just to make sure everybody's comfortable with sharing after, because this isn't something that we really need to just do one of and just share one of. We need to do a series of this because it has been great.
Well, what I can do is I can keep it inner circle only, and then when we go through the whole book, I can release it.
Yeah, that'll be good so that we have reference as we're going along as well. Yes, definitely keep it inner circle, and then we can decide later if we're going to release it to the public.
I'm just kind of blown back. It's usually me that tries to wrap it up. I never had Dennis trying to wrap up on me. It's like, oh man, okay.
Take out all those times that Dennis had to go straight to the sex. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. Speaking of
Somebody's got to keep it
stabs.
interesting for the masses. Somebody's got to think about the profane.
Very cool. Well, let's do final thoughts then, and yeah, we'll wrap it up. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add, or just any thoughts they want to throw out real quick?
I'll go first. Just as a quick summary, the chapter, my biggest take home was the quote that they bring in a couple times, and then again towards the end, that when the student is ready, the master will appear. When the student's ready, the words will appear. And I'm grateful that been able to continue to grow through having these rhetorical exercises that we talk about, and that I'm growing enough to where I think I'm finally starting to understand some of this stuff, and I appreciate everybody and the opportunity to be one to share in this group.
We're glad to have you, brother.
You know,
Nice.
to piggyback on that, you're exactly right. And people give up on this part of their Masonic journey, or if you want to call it a mystical journey, however you want to do it, but they give up on it because things are not making sense. But for some reason, I got this big old table that's got all these little pins in it, rows and rows and rows of pins, and every one of them represents a piece of knowledge or something that I've got, and there are times when just out of the clear blue, just like Dennis said a while ago, he had a wow moment. One of those pins will fall over against another one, make a connection, and bow, it's there. And that's why we have to keep learning and taking in all the information we can, because somewhere down the road, boom, gonna make a connection. It's cool.
Love that, man. Anyone else have anything? Yes, Brad.
Yeah, so I was keyed in on one part of the whole chapter that was talked about the art of Hermetic alchemy, which, contrary to the general belief, dealt in the mastery of mental forces rather than material elements, and the transmutation of one kind of mental vibration into others. And it just got me to thinking about, I was listening to Larry Fitzpatrick a few months back at my
Oh
lodge,
no, not Larry
and he
Fitzpatrick.
was talking about the gallows square and the 345, and the 3 represents faith, hope, and charity, and the 4 is temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice. And if you master, if you work on these kind of virtues in your life, then you're able to master the mental forces of anger, sadness, fear, disgust, and joy, which is the 5 primary emotions. And that just all tied together for me, like what you were just talking about, having a couple of pins stuck in my table here, and they just fell over and connected at that very moment. Thinking about all that and listening to you guys. And, Justin was talking about vibrations earlier, about, matching. I'm coming in and my vibrations are going like this. You go into a lodge that is stale, and there's, it's just like almost an even line. Well, I think I also make their line. If I'm coming in going like this, they're start moving a little bit too. So even though theirs might bring me down a little bit, I'm bringing them up. So at the same time, and I just got to keep digging and keep trying, man. It's that fraternity within a fraternity thing you were talking about.
Yep.
So yeah, very good chapter, very good conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have something?
I just feel like I have to go reread it again because I seem like I missed some stuff that you guys picked up on. Probably
Or we
3 or
may
4
have just
times.
gone a few down a few rabbit holes that in fact I was thinking about the vibration part when Justin was talking about it, and I'm sorry I kind of snuffed it a little bit, but the reason why is because we were jumping into one of our chapters that I didn't want to go too far down, because then we
That's a
wouldn't have
good
anything to
point.
talk about then.
That's a good point. Well, I'm sure, you know what, honestly, is everyone else gone? Does anyone else have something to say? John or
No, I cut you off, and I'm sorry about that. I shouldn't have cut you off, Daniel. Go ahead.
No, that was it. I just feel like I have to go back and reread again because man, I missed some stuff. You know, like I'm. This is good. This is good. Like y'all are deep digging the well deeper for me. So
Well, I was just gonna say after I read the chapter, I won't fib. I was a little concerned. It's like, this is there's not a whole lot of meat on the bones here in chapter one. So I didn't really know how the conversation was gonna go. But it went, I'm always pleased with how the conversations go with you guys. So let's just put it that way. I should have more, should worry less, I guess. Um, I'll say that this has been very insightful. Just listening to you guys. I feel as though I've learned quite a bit from each one of you tonight. And like I was saying, I have a lot. I have some rabbit holes to go down now that we've talked about some things. Um, yeah. So this is good. I'm really enjoying this, and I appreciate you all coming on for sure. I would say, and this is one time where I expected us to roll his eyes, and it's okay. If if you have time, just over this next month, as after you read maybe chapter two, there's a documentary on Netflix, and it's called The Secret. And yes, I saw that coming. And it's from 2006. So there's some other stuff called similarly, like some rom-coms or something. Don't fall for those. There's a documentary. It's got like an image of like a, let me actually pull it up. It's like an
I'm
image of,
not gonna lie. I've watched it.
it's like a wax seal. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And is it strictly hermetic? No, but is it an interesting supplement
Does
for
it
the
have
things you'll
some?
learn?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has some principles in
It's
there.
it's worth watching because it talks about, let's see, what is chapter two actually? I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. So this chapter two is Hermetic philosophy. This is wait, is that chapter one? That's chapter one. Chapter two will be, I'm just, so chapter two opens up the seven Hermetic principles. So read chapter two and then watch The Secret, and just kind of see if you can tell, like, okay, these are some of the principles we're talking about. I'll rewatch it too because it's there. And is The Secret 100% on track of everything? I don't think so. But are they right about some things? Yes, I think so. And to the point, like if you've ever been, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves talking about vibrations, but if you've ever just been up here, like you're in a good mood, you're zipping, everything's going great, and then someone snaps at you and it brings you right down, that's exactly what we're talking about, right? Or if you've ever been in a crappy mood and and Dennis gives you a call and all of a sudden everything just like your day's great again. It's all
Nope,
about those
the
vibrations.
opposite. The opposite.
But that's the example of those vibrations that
Making
work.
Chris's day great again. I'm gonna make a hat. Make That's
Honestly, if
funny.
Chris didn't say that, I would have been disappointed.
I'll I'll be you'll be my straight man, huh?
I was setting you up
Oh
for
my
success, Chris.
goodness.
But I
Guys,
appreciate all of you, and this has been great. I'm really enjoying this. I'm looking forward to next month and our next chapter, and I hope this is something we can keep doing because like I said, I read the chapter. I've read it several times before. Did I come away with more discussing it with y'all than I would if I just read it and took notes? Yes, absolutely. There is a huge amount of benefit from surrounding yourselves with like-minded men and discussing things. So I'm looking forward to this for next month for sure. And I appreciate each and every one of you taking the time out, not just to come on the show tonight, but actually read the book itself. Because we're all very busy. And so we all had a little bit of homework and we all did it. So I appreciate that.
John, do you have anything before I close?
No, sir. No. Thank y'all for having me. This was wonderful.
Thank you for
Nice. I'm
coming.
glad you enjoyed it. And Byron, I know that you came in late, but this
Oh yeah,
will
you
be
said
on the inner circle, so you'll be able to watch it, and that way you'll be ready for next time.
Yeah, man. I apologize for not getting in earlier. We had guests come over to the house tonight, and I got to enjoy some really cool fellowship, and and missed out on this fellowship. So call it a wash, if you will. But I'm just tickled to death to see all of these smiling and new faces to me anyway. Jacob, John, I saw you last week. James, you I have not seen before, but yeah, right on, great. Let's keep doing this.
James is known by Chris Williams, just so that you know, so that you'll know for the next time. He likes to be incognito when he's on the show.
I forgot I had that up there. Sorry.
Well, Chris
Yeah,
has
no
been at our
worries,
dinners
man.
before. He was at our inner circle dinner. You probably
Yes.
saw him didn't put a face to the name.
Yeah,
But
probably,
you
but
didn't kind of
it
catch
was
one
just
too.
me and Dion and another guy at my table, so it was just the three.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Just the
we'll
other
have to
guy.
fix that for next time, but I'm sure it was a party with y'all three.
Oh yeah, it was a
Yeah,
blast.
because I was there. You just forgot about me.
All right, so it's my turn to wrap this up. I'm so happy that we've done this. We talk the talk. Now we're walking the walk, and really just taking this inner circle thing to the next level. And we are creating the true identity of the inner circle when you look at it through the eyes of Manly P. Hall. And I am grateful that Chris came on the show and was able to help us with those uh, few moments of clarity and understanding on some things. And each and every one of you, you've brought so much to the table tonight, and this is exactly what I hoped for this show and this episode. And you know when I think of the different principles that I learned and relearned uh, in this chapter, the one thing that sticks out to me is the I guess it's the I had this all planned out and then I changed it midstream. So I guess the thing that stands out to me the most is the just the historical nature of this being the true time immemorial of Freemasonry. This really is the ancient mystery school to me. This really is the beginning and the end of all things, if we get down to brass tacks, and not to take the place of anyone's religion, but to enhance everyone's religion and everyone's spiritual feelings towards God and our place here in this world. This show was originally created for all those people that feel like they're on an island. We've said it 100 times in our show and at the end of our shows, but this right here, this is the island, and you are the people that are with me on my island, and I'm so grateful that y'all are with me on this island, even though you know Brother Asher just has to roll his eyes when I'm talking. I'm still grateful that I'm on the island with him. But y'all make it fun. Y'all make it interesting. You help me to grow as a
Now,
person.
Dennis, I'm at home. We got people walking around here.
No, I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing. But you know, several years back, and now it's been quite a few years back. Chris and Bradley Kohanke found me at officer leadership training, and when they found me, I found my people. And from that, y'all have grown into these people as well, into my people. And I'm just grateful that I don't have to go through this world thinking the thoughts that I think and the and trying to study this stuff and figure it out as I go alone. I don't have to do that. I have you guys, and I'm grateful for that. And otherwise, we will do this again next month for sure. It's going to be on a Wednesday next time because I typically don't want to take up our Sunday from our live show, because a lot of people get a lot from that, from you guys. They get a lot from y'all. So we're going to pick this back up on a Wednesday next time. We've got a reunion coming up. If any of you guys know anyone in the San Antonio area that is interested in Scottish Rite Masonry, see that beautiful building behind me and that beautiful building behind Chris? That's our building. That's our home. And anyone that we know is welcome to join that home with us. We'd love to share that and the wisdom that comes from it. Otherwise, brothers, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for being a part of my inner circle, and keep it between the points.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.